West Virginia. I think they sacked Will Grier 7 times. Montgomery had a huge game. Purdy did just enough through the air. Ball control, legs, a factor as well. I love Matt Campbell as an underdog. And you wonder about what it's been with Mike Leach in some of his bowl performances lately. Mm-hmm. Last year, threw up an absolute stinker against Michigan State, right, getting blown out in the Holiday Bowl. Year before that, we touched on it before, the no-show against a shorthanded Minnesota team, 12 points. I mean, if you go back under Leach, his teams as a favorite 11 times, 3-8 against the spread, 6 outright losses, 1-7 against the number in his last 8 bowl games. And if you look in his last 5 trips to bowls, the only win for a Mike Leach team was a game in the Sun Bowl against Miami, the year that Al Golden was fired, and they were in the midst of hiring a coach, bringing in coaching staff player. It was a disaster. So whatever, I don't know if it's the added time to prep for Leach's system, or Leach has basically just allowed his team to go out and just treat the bowl game as a vacation, and whatever happens, just go have fun. It's a reward, which is fine, but for whatever reason, his teams have not played well in bowl games. And Iowa State is a team that I think with Campbell, it will be very excited to be there. I think they'll probably have a little bit more fans. I think come down from Ames to San Antonio, then probably will make the trip from the Palouse. We'll see, but which would be a really fun game. I do like Iowa State.
Yeah, Mike Leach, great points on this. And yes, this is going to be a very interesting game to watch. You have to tune into this one. Mike Leach, 1-7 in bowl games since 2005. Matt Campbell, 2-2. I don't think Mike Leach cares. I just, in my mind, I think just like you said, maybe he says, kids, just go have some fun, go party the night before the bowl game. I don't know, but I just think he's kind of got that attitude where it's either I'm either making the playoffs or I don't care, and I'm going to show everybody I don't care, because he's that kind of guy. He's made some comments about the playoffs and everything like that, and I think and that's a real angle you can bet on there. This is the sample size in this trend is high. 1-7 here, yep, is in 3-8, like you said. Man, a low total of 55 kind of tells me a little bit. Iowa State's used to playing the high-flying offenses like Oklahoma, West Virginia, who they beat, and Texas Tech, who they beat in the Big 12, straight up. Having a defense allowing 5.1 yards per play is almost unheard of in the Big 12 the last 5 years. I think the sharp money agrees with us here. I took Iowa State. I took them early, +6, and I'm also taking the money line on this one for sure. This is one that you have a higher bet on the spread, and I recommend putting some on the money line. Let's move into the Tex Slayer Bowl, Jacksonville, Florida. We have Texas A&M versus NC State. NC State's getting 6.5 points. Over under is at 58.5, man. These teams seem very similar to me, but different divisions. What are your thoughts on this one?
Hey, this is a game where I think you're having a hard time finding anybody like NC State in this game, just because no Harmon, no Grace. I mean, that's a big deal for a team that, since that blowout loss at Clemson, the tone and the direction of their season has really, really changed. Mm-hmm. So, you hate liking A&M just because, it's one of these games that looks so obvious, and you certainly by now, the best of the line is gone, up to 6.5. If I had to play the game, I would play A&M just because I think there is with Mond in year one under Jimbo, there will be a reason to really be motivated and play and finish out the string well. You got Mond coming back, a defensive line that's really, really good, and without his best offensive weapon, you've got to wonder how effective Finley will be. So I would again, wouldn't be running out to lay 6.5 with A&M, but I certainly think A&M money line would probably be a little bit better of a value.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher likes to just at the very end of the game let that garbage touchdown in. You saw them lose to Auburn this year at the end. How crazy was that?
Getting a cover that, I mean, the Ole Miss game was a game they had no business covering at Kyle Field, and scored a couple late to go through the front door and cover as a favorite. But his games have come in right around the number, and I wouldn't want to be playing point spread Plinko there at the end.
Yeah, that is a Plinko game. Both teams won their last 3 games, but NC State's was such an easy schedule. Both teams are around 6.2 yards per play on offense. NC State gives up 5.7 per play on defense. A&M gives up about 5.9. But Texas A&M's in my opinion, a much harder conference. Obviously, the Aggies run the ball better at 4.9 yards per rush to the Wolfpack's 3.9. Jimbo Fisher is 5-3 against the spread. Dave Duran is 4-1. It's hard to adjust for strength of schedule. I threw it through my algorithm, and I still had the Aggies winning, but a little bit of a closer game. But like you said, NC State looks like they kind of, after they got their butts kicked by Clemson, it's hard to bet them on this. I have a lean, and now that it's 6.5, I have a lean to NC State, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to say just wait on this one, okay? I think there's going to be more Texas A&M money coming in because everyone's going to say Texas A&M almost beat Clemson, but NC State got their butts kicked. That's what everyone's going to think when they come in and bet this, all the public. And so I think I can see this number going to 7, and could even be 7.5. So at that point, I would nibble on NC State in this game. Let's move on to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, Louisiana. Texas versus Georgia. Georgia's laying 13. Over-under's 58. Gosh, Georgia, how close were you? What a terrible call by Kirby Smart. I don't think we need to go into that fake punt, but, man, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I think the only way you're betting this game right off the bat before a kick is if you're playing Texas on the money line as a 13-point dog to win outright. Whatever the number is right now, I don't have the money lines in front of me. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a great game to live bet. While I think Georgia will be motivated and they're going to come out pissed off that they're not in the playoff, and they're going to come out and show people that they belong in the playoff, you don't know that for sure. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a game where if it were me, I would sit back. I would wait, knowing the questions of Georgia's potential motivation or lack thereof. But I think now with Fromm being the guy, he's going to come out. Jake Fromm is not a guy who's going to go into a game and not care about playing. This guy is an alpha who's going to go out and play his butt off. Mm-hmm. However, you don't know, maybe on the defensive side of the ball, things change, or the offensive line issues, who know? You know Tom Herman's affinity is being a really good underdog. So I would just sit and wait. You're going to know early. If Georgia comes out, scores early, gets stopped, that would be all I'd need to know to show their interest in playing this game. However, they come out, kind of go through the motions. Defense doesn't look good. Can't stop Kent Ingram and Ellinger running. And you know what? Maybe I'll be interested in Texas here. So again, with the evolution of sports betting now within this country, the opportunity to live bet these games, I think this is a great game to potentially live bet.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Absolutely, great idea. Sometimes when it comes to the running team and the passing team, I live bet the first one to score. You know, if there's such a great difference there, totally get what you're saying. How is Georgia more of let down? Their ultimate goal is the playoffs, and they're not going to care as much, even though this is a Sugar Bowl. Or, like you said, Fromm's a gamer. You know, what if the Alabama barely beats Oklahoma? Does Georgia want to put one on Texas, right? And say it should have been us? Yeah, I don't know. You know, what if Alabama blows out Oklahoma? Because the games before this, and then maybe Georgia's like, whatever. I have no idea there. I think I do have Georgia as one of my best 4 teams in college football, with Ohio State and Oklahoma right there too. My power ratings has Georgia by 11, I think 11 or 12. Sam Ehlinger is kind of a winner though. He's also a very gritty type quarterback. Texas team seems to play up or down to their competition throughout the year. I think you notice them barely squeaking by terrible teams and keeping up with the Joneses. I have this game through my algorithm at Georgia 35-23. So literally 12 points.
Right, basically right on the number.
Yeah, right on the number. And so I have no lean. I have motivational questions, so I think you're absolutely right. If I had a lean, it'd be slightly over 58, but I think that this has live betting all over. Before we get to the final 2 games here, I'm going to throw something crazy at you, all right? And it has to do with the LSU versus Central Florida game. Now, it's a motivational type story. Please don't judge me on this, but I thought it's just fun to think about and discuss here. What kind of motivation does LSU have to beat Central Florida is kind of my question. LSU, isn't their goal to make the 4? Who would LSU be helping if they beat Central Florida here? The SEC. I kind of look at it like this, and I have no money on this game, no plays. This is just something fun I thought about. I look at LSU as that kid in high school. He comes from a poor family. He's a good athlete, and does really well for the school. But there's that other kid, let's just call him Bama, that is just a little bit better looking than him, has more friends. The teachers like him. His family's rich. And let's even say Bama took his girl. Let's call her Nikki, okay? and so LSU's looking at this game. Why should I help them out? And here's how it is. Say LSU, this kid knows they're in a wrestling competition. They know something about Bama's competition that would help. But at the same time, you've been competing against this kid. You're not really friends. You're going to help him get all the glory if you tell him their weakness. I mean, what's your motivation to doing that? Why would LSU, who's been competing against this person and losing out his whole life, want to help the other person there if they're not even friends? I mean, let's face it. It's a lot better for the national champion and the integrity of the committee to not have an undefeated Central Florida team out there. And why would LSU help out their number 1 adversary like that? Tell me I'm crazy, Chris.
The motivation for LSU to play this game and win this game is to not be Auburn from last year. Auburn is a punchline in the SEC for losing to UCF. And in the eyes of a lot of SEC fans, embarrassing themselves and for losing a game that, look, and I hate harping on this. I hate it because UCF went out, made plays, and won the game. But if you were to sit Gus Malzahn down and hook him up to a lie detector and ask him about his team and his mentality going into that game, and if he thought Auburn played their best and was invested in playing in that game, he would tell you no. I mean, look at the guys who sat the game. Mm-hmm. It's just human nature. Auburn thought last year they would be in that building playing in that national championship game. They lost the SEC championship game. They saw their 2 hated rivals wind up in the playoff, in that title game, and they were just gutted. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. Take nothing away from UCF won the game. Now you're LSU. You can say what you want about Ed Orgeron and his X's and O's, meddling in the offense, whatever, in-game decisions. The one thing that you have never needed to question with Ed Orgeron is week in and week out is his team's readiness emotionally to go out and play. They have been emotionally ready to play every single game. And whether they do in this bowl game with a whole bunch of guys out, that's another thing. By the way, as of when we're recording this, Devin White is still playing, and it looks like he's going to play. That is a good thing. I know Greedy Williams isn't playing. I know Alexander isn't playing. They got some other injuries, but if the LSU team